very happy to talk a little bit about outstanding customer experience and how we can achieve this with the right approach to a digital customer care. Before I dive into it, I'd like to share a little story that happened a few weeks back when I tried to apply for health insurance. That was not Aviva, so don't worry. The story ends well anyway. But I did need a new health insurance. So what I did was go online and start comparing the different offers. I picked one that seemed to be exactly what I needed. I went on the website, studied the offer, and it was actually incredibly easy to apply. I had a simple form, uploaded a few documents, gave my banking information, and in just a few minutes, I had a new health insurance. That's what we would call outstanding customer experience, right? That was smooth, that was easy, that was quick, loved it. About 3 weeks later, I received a paper letter. I was thinking, well, you provide me with an outstanding online experience and then you do a follow-up with paper. Well, why not? So I opened the letter, and the letter was saying, "Dear Mr. Rio, unfortunately there seems to be some information missing about your account. Please fill this paper form." I'm not quite a big fan of paper forms because I know I'm going to have to fill it. I go to the post office, I'll buy a stamp, I will send it, it's going to be lost at some point, and it's going to take another 5 weeks before my problem is solved. So instead of sending the ASAP form I had to return, I decided to go back on their website, that was greatly done, and search for ways to communicate with the company. So I looked for things such as, like live chats or messaging channels that I could have a conversation with the company. Fortunately, they did not quite have that. So I went on the contact page and then I filled the usual form, where you need to identify yourself, give your customer number, your policy number, explain your problem. It takes a little while, but it was pretty straightforward. Send the message, then I forgot about it. It's only about a week later that they finally got back to me, and just my first email was only to acknowledge the fact that they received my letter. A week to just tell me, "Hey, we received your email, we passed it to the right department, they'll get back to you very quickly." Right? Waited another 3-4 days, and then I got my answer, and the answer was great. "Dear Mr. Rio, we're sorry, this is not the right department to answer this kind of question, but we'll get back to you very soon. Please call our hotline if you need a quick answer." I don't know about you guys, but I kind of hate hotlines. First, I don't like the phone, because I have to focus entirely on what I'm doing. Second, I know it's going to cost me money. I know I'm going to spend probably 20 minutes on the line saying, "You have 3 people waiting on the line. Please hold on." But there is also the whole SBI stuff, where I know I'm going to have to press 1, press 2, press 3, press hashtag. I'm going to have to wait. I'm going to have to identify myself again. I'm going to have to explain my problem again. But well, that was a process. You have to go through the process. So I picked up the phone, I called them, and guess what? I waited. I pressed 1, 2, 3 hashtag. I had to identify myself. I had to explain my problem. Doesn't matter. It didn't work out. I got an agent on the phone, and it was super nice and super helpful. We're back to good customer experience, sort of. But the agent just told me, "Well, it appears, we have automation on our site, so it's highly possible that you received this letter just because the system sent it. It doesn't mean you have to fill it. Just ignore the letter. You are properly covered. All is fine. Don't worry about it." Well, that was great. My problem was solved. Except that on the very next day, I received another answer to my initial email. "Yes, sir, you have to fill the paper form and send it back ASAP. That is urgent." Well, how confusing was that? So I decided to call them again. I called, and I went through the whole line, identification, 1, 2, 3 hashtag, explaining my problem. I was starting to get a little frustrated, to be honest with you. And the guy, probably not the same actually, just told me, "Hey, same thing happened with email. Just ignore it. It's a different department handling it. That's just fine. I checked your account now. You're registered. Don't worry about it." Awesome. 3 days later, another paper form arrived in the mailbox. "Sir, we have not received your original paper form. You have to send it now, otherwise we won't be covered." I'm going to cut the chase to here. We went through another couple of back and forth, but the problem was solved in the end. I'm covered, so I could have an accident tomorrow. Pretty fine now. But that was very frustrating in customer experience. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because I would like to analyze a little bit what happened during my story. From my perspective, the first thing that was wrong here was forcing me on channels I did not choose. I went through their website because they had They had the outstanding customer experience, digital customer experience I was looking for. I did not want to go through paper forms. I definitely didn't want to call their hotline. Not a big fan of the web form either. Forcing me on channels that's forcing the customers to fit into your processes is definitely not the right way to give outstanding customer experience. But that was just the first problem. Second problem is really about the delay. I mean, 1 week just to acknowledge that you received my email, not acceptable. Another 3 days to follow up, not acceptable. Keeping me on the line for 20 minutes before answering my questions, not acceptable. Customers are expecting speed nowadays. But there is a third problem. And the third problem is a real lack of communication between the different departments. How is that possible that one department sends me a letter and say the exact opposite of what the guy on the phone tells me, and a third thing over email? I mean, that's not what you would call consistent customer experience. But that is just my perspective. What did that mean for the company itself? Well, from the company perspective, let's just say I'm not going to be a brand ambassador, so in terms of customer satisfaction, that was not such a great experience. But it was way beyond that. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. From a customer experience point of view, it also means that they had much more backlog than they should have. Just think about it for a second. One problem, one customer, about 5 different interactions with different channels. You do that with every customer, you multiply by 5 the amount of messages you have to deal with on a daily basis. What does that mean? That means that you need more staff. More staff to hire, more staff to manage, more staff to pay for, more staff to train. That becomes a huge headache just because you have not been able to handle this very simple problem in the first place. At the end of the day, all of those things have one very simple consequence. Huge loss of profit for the company. But let's go back to business. Why am I telling you all this? Because your customers' expectations have changed. You've probably heard of those tiny companies that we call Amazon, Uber, Airbnb. Those guys have seriously raised the bar when it comes to customer expectations. Yeah, they might not be in the same industry as you, but customers' expectations change quickly because they get used to good things. Try to give chocolate to your kids today and tell them tomorrow they will only have sweet peas. You'll see how that's going to go. When people get something, they expect to get it all the time, to get it everywhere. I can't understand why I'm sending a message to Uber on the right, easy channel, and I get an answer within 1 hour, but when I contact my insurance company, it takes them a week just to acknowledge reception of my email. This kind of changes mean that now your customers need more speed, more convenience, more digital. They need you to care. And they need you to make it convenient for them, not convenient for your company. They want you to give them the processes they need, and they don't want you to push them into your own processes. But it actually goes beyond that, because we have new generations. And I'm already part of the old ones now. It's sad about it, but that's a fact. New generations are actually looking for digital channels. Look at the kids getting out of high school. What they like to do is, even though they're still very social, they will just all be in groups outside of high school. They're all on their phone, and they're not talking on the phone, they are really messaging each other. Because that's the new trend. New generations, they want messaging apps, they want social media, they no longer want to pick up the phone to talk with the company. They no longer want to send a paper letter or even worse, a paper form. Now, let's take a very quick survey to see if what I'm saying here is right. Quick survey here. Who in this room is actually using either messaging or social media apps every single day? Can you just raise your hand? Alright, I think that's pretty much everyone. The official survey figures are even more interesting. 80% of adults today are using a messaging app every single day. 91% when it comes to teenagers. And those 91% are tomorrow's customers for you. And that is a very interesting study from Teleperformance that they published a couple of weeks ago, maybe months ago now, showing what the phone is doing in terms of customer care. In the past 3 years, since 2015, the usage of phone as a communication channel has dropped a lot. And more interesting even, being omni-digital means being available on a multiple number of digital channels, so that your customers can reach out to you in a convenient way for them. Studies show that the NPS, your Net Promoter Score, is directly related to the number of channels you offer for your customers to contact you. Because the more reachable you are, the easier it is for you to solve problem and delight your customers. So having more and more channels is really the way to go if you want to increase your NPS. Now let's go back to my original story and see what went wrong here. First problem, they had very limited number of channels, right? Paper, phone, eventually web form. They could have improved it pretty easily by just adding new channels, even though it might not be that easy to just add new channels and deal with them. But even if they had done that, they would not have solved their second problem, which is that the company was really organized around silos. And that's a whole story about having a different answer from the paper version to the web version to the phone version, because those are different teams and they might not be able to communicate. They don't use the same tool, they don't have the same processes. Let's assume they fix it. This is interesting stat here. 58% of customers are saying that they are very frustrated to get different inconsistent experiences across channels. Because you don't want to be in a situation where you have to figure out what is the right answer because you receive different answers from different services. Okay, let's say they fix that problem. Next problem is about identification. Okay, that's very easy when you got a customer moving in your shop to say, okay, this is this guy. But when it comes to digital world, how do you know that @Junko on Twitter is the same person as Junko@gmail.com? Identifying your customers is essential because if you don't, then you're going to, once again, frustrate your customers and increase the volume of incoming messages. We got to know that a dissatisfied customer is going to contact you in average through 3 different channels. Why? Because they bet that one is going to be faster than the other. Most of the time, they're right. If you can't identify this with the same customer, you're going to have to deal with 3 times the volume of messages, once again. Some more stats here. I know everyone loves numbers. 89% of customers are frustrated by having to repeat their issue multiple times. 72% of customers are actually saying that the customer care agent should be able to identify them. I don't want to identify myself, I don't want to explain my problem 50 times. I'm sure that's the case for everyone. That is where Dimelo is coming in. I'm going to make it quick. Who we are basically the link between your customers and your company in the digital world. We're an omni-digital online platform helping large companies to connect all of their digital channels so that they can manage every incoming messages through one single platform. Making it super short, Dimelo, we are treating over 14.5 million messages every month throughout the entire world. We deal with over 200 large companies around the world in 52 different countries, and we understand automatically 72 different languages. And whatever I've heard before, Polish is not the most difficult one to do. Making it simple, we basically connect every digital channel. If you're talking about messaging, social media, your email, your live chat, your mobile app, your forums, your community, your chatbot. We connect it all and we group everything into one platform. Why do we do that? Because it's going to make it so much easier for your customer care agents to deal with messages if they are not organized around silos. Whether your customers are using your native app, sending messages so that they are automatically identified to send you a message, or whether it's coming from Twitter, from Facebook, or whatever other channel, right from the same platform, meaning that now you have one team, and the messages will be allocated to your customer agents based on competencies, not on the tools they've been using. Why is it great to use a single platform? Because it means less training. You don't have 50 tools to deal with. But it also means that it's much easier to manage the workload. You can balance your workload much more easily, because if you got a peak of traffic on Twitter, and you got one different tool for Twitter that you have for your email, and you can't move your email team to Twitter, you're going to have to deal with it on their own. If you have one platform to deal with all, you just change resources very easily and allocate them. You need extra training? That's the simple. What we do at Dimelo is also helping people identifying their customers. We are going to tell you whether this person is the same on Twitter as it is on Facebook, on Messenger, and so on. Why? Because less frustration for your customers and better productivity for your customer agents. Last but not least, Dimelo is an open platform. We talked a little bit about API just before. And the thing about API is when you use tools that are called open, you can basically connect all the different tools. And that's so important. Everyone talks about the 360 view of their customers. But the truth is, if your CRM, your call solution, your chatbot, your BI, your BPM, if all of those tools are completely isolated, you don't have circulation of information, you have obsolete and redundant information. If you want this holy grail of the 360 views, you're going to have to connect your tools together. Another interesting stat here. 42% of customer service agents are not able to provide outstanding customer experience just because they don't have the full picture because the different tools are not connected. If your customer care agents index less your CRM, how are they going to know how to fix the problem that your customers are bringing up? And I will finish with 3 quick examples. We work in France with BNP since 2011, and with them we work with their various brands, BNP and Hello Bank, the digital version of BNP. We work with them for the past 7 years just to bring new bricks as their customers evolve, because there are new channels, there are new expectations, there are new behaviors from their customers. And we just accompany them year after year to help them improve their customer care approach. Now another example from the other side of the world. I'd like to talk about Bangladesh. Bangladesh, which is a telco company, has 50 million users. That sounds pretty huge. Now just think about it. They speak 5 different languages. And they want to be available on 10 different channels. So let's say you receive a message. First you have to identify the language that you may not speak yourself. Then you have to understand the problem. Then you have to allocate it to the right person. And you might have different tools, different teams, different agents. That becomes a nightmare. Why they chose to work with us is very simple. With below any message coming in, we identify the language automatically, we identify the problem automatically, we allocate it to the right agent. It made it so much simpler for them to manage their business, and so much more productive, so much less frustrating from their customers' perspective. And I'd like to finish with that example, which is probably my favorite one. If you haven't heard of iFlix, it's normal. iFlix is a Netflix version for Asia, Africa, and Middle East. They're huge. We don't know them too much in Europe, we know Netflix better, but they're huge. That's the same thing. Now, when iFlix started, it was a tiny startup, and they knew they had a huge potential of growth. The problem was, how am I going to grow so fast if every time I deploy an IT solution, it takes me 1 to 3 years to get it set up and running? They had to find a partner that would grow with them extremely fast. With iFlix, we deployed the Juno solution in 25 countries within a single year. Better yet, we offer them a solution that enables them to control their data on a global scale while giving sufficient flexibility for each country to manage their own languages and their own channels. I don't want to let you leave this room without a few key takeaways. Let's make it worth for everyone. First thing, customers' expectations have changed. They want more digital, they want more speed, they want more care, they want more solution, they want you to follow their process and not the other way around. If you want to keep your customers, you're going to have to adapt to this new generation. 2, you have to be where your customers expect. I'm not saying here you should be on every possible digital channel. It does not make sense. You have to identify what your customers like using most and to be available there. If they spend 3 hours a day on Messenger, that might be the channel where you should be. Number 3, you have to offer consistent customer experience. No one wants to get a different answer on Messenger than they get on email or Twitter. You have to offer the same experience everywhere. That's what people expect. Number 4, you have to connect your various tools. Because the only way to give this kind of consistent customer experience is to connect all the different bricks of your customer care ecosystem. And last but not least, you're going to have to identify your customers. Not just to reduce their frustration, even though that's a pretty good motivation to start with, but also because that is going to reduce most of your problems in the same time. Because if you identify your customers, it's much easier to deal with their complaints much faster and much less workload for your team. You're going to be able to do much better things. I hope that was insightful, and I'd be happy to take any question in English or in Polish. I got my translator. Thank you.